In 2019, humanity received a warning. 30 of the world's leading scientists released the results of a massive 3-year study into global agriculture and declared that meat production is destroying our planet and jeopardizing global health.
We are being faced simultaneously with a series of humongous existential crises. Climate breakdown, ecological cascading collapse, the disappearance of insects.
We are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, and the extinction rate is up to 10,000 times faster than what is considered normal, with up to 200 species becoming extinct every single day.
A report warning the world that unprecedented and immediate change is needed to prevent a climate catastrophe.
If we want to save the planet, we need to change what we put on the table and how we produce food.
But the clock is ticking. I mean, we're talking about the end of humanity as we know it.
Either the world ends or we all become vegan.
What's social media without social purpose? This film is sponsored by Billion Veg, the revolutionary social media platform with a social purpose. Help others by sharing information that's needed to make better choices. Find out more at the end of this film or in the link below.
In 2019, environmental awareness was increasing, and people were starting to take action, including corporations who started to support the vegan economy. The most significant of these was UK high street bakery Greggs, which unleashed media chaos at the beginning of the year with the launch of its vegan sausage roll.
The vegan edition, case, pastry layers, 96 flake resolution, optimal, taste level maximum megabytes, 10 megabytes.
Wow.
Wow.
10, where's 3?
96 layers of puff pastry.
I was wondering if you could get me one of them sweet vegan sausage rolls, bro.
Go for it.
Remote chance.
Go for it.
Oh, they're
I'll
slightly
try
warm,
it.
these. They're nice, actually. Let's have a go.
And it's got corn inside. You wouldn't really know that's not a sausage roll, would you?
Or meat sausage roll. Yeah, no, you wouldn't.
How lovely.
Okay, so we're out here looking for the vegan sausage roll, and you're looking for one as well, yeah?
Yes.
Why the vegan one?
Because I'm just trying to sort of go meat-free at the moment.
Really?
17 days as of today, and I don't know, I'm looking for other options apart from meat.
Hello, we were just wondering, do you have any vegan sausage rolls?
Oh, unfortunately not. We've sold out. I think we're having a problem with the manufacturers. They didn't get how many, how much people were going to like it, how much publicity they want to get. So they kind of got backed up with the orders and that. So
Tell you what, I'm all about the vegan sausage roll. That's brilliant.
But alongside the positive coverage of the Greggs vegan sausage roll was a more negative response.
I mean, they stink. Ooh, God.
When you go to your favorite fast food restaurant, you're going to be eating a fake hamburger.
I've always thought just a balanced diet is the answer for everybody, right? My issue with veganism is it's not balanced.
They want to create a race of soulless creatures on this planet.
They're so sort of aggressive about it.
They're changing God's creation.
It's nonsense, isn't it?
Bacon is back on the menu.
Most of Britain still eats meat.
I will donate $1 million if every vegan on the planet just shuts up.
Oh.
You had your month, you had Veganuary, it's over.
But maybe these mainstream journalists, without realising it, are just there to confuse.
That's a good look, Piers.
Oh, my God.
And when we're confused about what to eat, we stick to old habits. And these old habits feed the power and wealth of the meat, dairy, and egg industries.
thing is here, actually, the bottom line.
Are you going to say moderation?
No, I'm not. I'm just going to say, when you read this stuff, just think, oh, I can't be bothered. Don't take any notice of them, because they all change it.
This is the biggest problem, is the elites and the BBC and the conventional media has simply not grasped the enormity of what's happening.
Well,
One of the biggest critics of the mainstream media throughout 2019 was Roger Hallam, a founder of a new environmental group called Extinction Rebellion, which rose to prominence in early 2019 in an unprecedented way.
We don't really want to block the roads, we just want to get a load of people arrested, and then we can say to the politicians, 1,000 people are happy to lose their liberty because we want some change.
Hallam, who has been vegan for more than 30 years and recently started a PhD in direct action campaigning, wanted to use Extinction Rebellion to bring the government to a standstill in a bid to address climate change and connected issues like animal agriculture through a democratic process.
Extinction Rebellion has a particular role, and that role is to basically bring the government to a halt. Now, once that's happened, the plan is there's a National Citizens' Assembly. When you enable ordinary people to consider the facts, then they come up with something sensible, right? And it's a no-brainer that we can't have animal agriculture. So it'll be a no-brainer that when those ordinary people come together and they realise, then obviously people are going to do what's necessary, like they did in the Second World War. You know, everyone accepted rationing. Once people get the information, they change really rapidly.
The Extinction Rebellion protests of early 2019 sparked the debate and forced politicians in a number of countries to declare a climate emergency.
Help us make 2019 the year that everything changes. We need New York City to take the lead and declare a climate emergency.
By the end of the year, further, more profound protests from Extinction Rebellion would shut down several cities around the world. This time with a more specific message, front and centre, about what was needed to really fight climate change. The plant-based food system was already being bolstered, in particular by one company in 2019 called Beyond Meat. After large-scale investment and nearly a decade of research and development, the Californian-based company went public.
So what's really interesting about this is it's a $1.4 trillion market that has seen very little in disruptive innovation recently or throughout history, actually. And so what we're able to do here is bring a new technology into the marketplace, a new approach that enables people to continue to consume all the products they love, whether the burgers, sausage, etc., but do it in a way that's a little better for them and a little better for the planet.
Back in 2009.
It was great. I mean, it was amazing to meet all these. Really, wow, that's incredible.
That's great.
Vegan burger startup Beyond Meat got their initial public listing off to a sizzling start as its share price almost tripled to make it the biggest US company IPO since the financial crisis of 2008. It counts Leonardo DiCaprio, Jessica Chastain, and even Microsoft founder Bill Gates as investors, and it's environmentally friendly. Its signature product, the Beyond Burger, reportedly uses less water, less land, less energy, while also generating fewer greenhouse gas emissions as compared to your average beef burger.
As Beyond Meat began to offer vegan products in the meat aisle in various stores, its competitor, Impossible Foods, also signed deals with major distributors, and a race began to take over the $1.3 trillion a year meat market.
Beyond Meat's biggest current competitor is another plant-based company, Impossible Foods, valued at just below $1 billion, according to PitchBook.
It's all heating up. Impossible Foods also joined forces with Burger King to release an Impossible Whopper just last month.
I don't know if you've heard of the Impossible Burger. If you have not heard of the Impossible Burger, it is delicious.
They're all going after the $1.3 trillion global meat industry.
As meat substitute products grew in popularity, the whole market began to shift.
The beef industry is fighting to keep market share from slipping to new plant-based substitutes.
Various meat and dairy brands released plant-based products, including global pork company Smithfields and leading cheesemaker Applewood, as well as Tyson Foods, the second largest producer of meat in the world. And as the vegan food sector began to win over public opinion, it also became a pop culture staple.
Move over, soy. There's a new trendy milk in town. Oat milk.
You posted this, you've started a vegan roast dinner. And then Piers Morgan replied, "Oh, for sake, Ramsey, not you as well. This looks utterly revolting."
I disagree.
I actually think it looks pretty good. What do you say to this, to Piers' critique?
So Piers Morgan is now a food critic.
Yeah, sure.
Go and yourself.
In the last 12 months, there's been more innovation than in the last 12 years in plant-based foods.
Brought up in plant-based news.
Plant-based news.
It's an interesting publication.
This is the news, okay? This is the real news.
The message we can get out today is that people need to increase their plant-based in their diets.
Veganism is on the rise, so we got to adapt.
Yeah.
And we just have to eat a slice of humble pie.
As the vegan sector began to win over popular opinion, vegans began appearing on TV more and more.
Little about myself, I'm a vegan. Yes, I'm a vegan, which means I don't. Yeah, all right, thank you, 3 vegans. All right, I appreciate it. So a vegan, we don't eat animals, we don't eat meat or whatever, and the reason I decided to be a vegan is because I had a dog and I fell in love with my dog, and I was like, I can't eat my dog, you know, I can't do it. And I know most of us don't eat our dogs, you know? But we eat pigs, and guess what? Pigs are smarter than dogs. Pigs are smarter than chimpanzees, they're just ugly. And you can't eat something just because it's ugly, because if that's the case, some of y'all looking tasty tonight, all right? If I'm being real.
Do you eat any animal products at all? Or I don't. Jim and I haven't had any animal products in 6.5 years, and we are bursting with energy and health and life.
It is about how this diet affects the world, not just personal health, but also sustainability and ecology. Animals, and this is what I care about, so I'm really privileged to be part of that team.
This is the 112th time that David has donated blood. A vegan for 27 years, he says he wants to challenge the notion that vegans lack vital vitamins.
As demand for vegan products grew, supermarkets, brands, restaurants, and fast food outlets continued to release options. Margarine giant Flora made its whole range vegan, and pizza chains updated their menus with vegan cheese and meat.
It looks like meat. Believe me, it tastes like meat, but there is no meat in any of these 3 pizzas. Domino's Australia will launch 3 plant-based pizzas, the first in Australia from September.
Supermarkets competed, releasing new products led by Marks & Spencer's new plant kitchen range. And fast food giant KFC trialled a vegan-friendly sandwich, selling out in just days.
KFC is now finna go vegan, man.
KFC released their first vegan burger, guys. KFC released their first vegan burger.
KFC's new vegan chicken burger.
KFC, if you don't roll this out in all of your stores, I'm going to be incredibly sad.
But as more and more vegan products were launched, it was becoming increasingly clear that many of them relied on a globalized food system with ingredients that were highly processed.
Finger-licking vegan.
And so, amid the euphoria of new vegan products everywhere, came the realization that actually, these were not the panacea that many had hoped for. These issues were addressed by some who, on the one hand, explained how vegan options are at least more efficient and less intentionally harmful than their meat-based counterparts, while others push for further progress and more holistic ways of thinking. One increasingly persuasive option was vegan permaculture, the organic production of crops causing minimal harm to animals and to the environment.
So vegan products are in many ways a fantastic sign of progress, but when they're wrapped in plastic, sprayed with pesticides or using animal fertilizers, they still don't represent the solution to a lot of the destruction that is happening to our natural environment. What vegan permaculture does is try to think quite sort of aspirationally about what could we achieve as a civilization if we really try and think about that whole big picture. If we think about how to mimic nature, how to create habitats, how to enrich our soils. So that's what's so exciting about vegan permaculture and its growth at the moment, because it really represents that next step in a sort of paradigm shift that we are going to have to go through if we want to take care of the earth more effectively.
Our survival is entirely dependent on nature. You know, we use it for our fuel, for our food. It sustains us. We're not disconnected from it. This enormous edifice of life, this cathedral of biodiversity, cannot be replaced. You know, you can rebuild Notre Dame Cathedral and it will look pretty much like the one that's there before. You cut this wood down, you cannot rebuild it by sticking in a few saplings. It's just an enormous act of ecological vandalism at a time when we really should know better. I mean, it's like a light's gone on in one part of our brain telling us that there's a climate and environment emergency and we've all got to make changes to cope with this, to address this issue, but we haven't yet turned the other one off, which tells us that we've got to make the short-term progress. Someone please turn that old light off so that we can bathe in the brightness of a new vision of a better future for ourselves and the planet. Like now, maybe.
See beauty in the natural world. That is the primary source. We see lovely flowers, butterflies, birds, animals of all kinds, birds, whales, gibbons, spiders. If we are to ensure the prosperity of the human race, we have to understand the natural world. We have to appreciate the natural world.
We've been obsessed with protein for the past 70 years. Heart disease has gone this way. Diabetes has gone this way. We're only getting sicker. We're only getting fatter. Obesity is now a $2 trillion problem. We don't... Listen, protein is not the problem. Fiber is the problem. We're not eating enough fiber. So the strongest animals on the planet are all vegan. Rhinos, elephants, gorillas, hippos.
As awareness grew around the health benefits of plant-based diets, mainstream medical establishments started to change recommendations.
There's been a lot of speculation lately about what's in Canada's new food guide. Well, now we know.
Canada removed dairy from its new food guide at the beginning of the year.
It's actually the first time around this guide was based on science. All previous guides had invited the food industry to have seats at tables, to have votes at tables, and to have closed-door meetings.
The Canadian food guide showed that without industry influencing recommendations, an important shift towards plant-based diets in the mainstream could take hold.
And in 40 years of research, we've been able to show that simple lifestyle changes can undo or reverse the progression of the most common chronic diseases, diabetes being one.
Diabetes, cancer, autoimmune issues. Not only do we not need animal products, but they're actually not good for us.
There's more and more evidence coming out showing that animal protein is inflammatory. It causes chronic inflammation, it causes oxidative stress.
The new understanding of the pathophysiology is so profound in 2019. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people use every dollar they have, every social media outlet they have, every way to manipulate the public mind to hang on. It's just like smoking. They're going to hang on, but they're going to fall off the ship.
Some of our leading killers can be reversed. For example, heart disease, the #1 killer of men and women. Arteries can be opened. Heart disease reversed without drugs, without surgery, just a healthy enough diet centered around whole plant foods. There's only one diet that's ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, a plant-based diet.
But in the face of increasing awareness, veganism faced a new antagonist in 2019, the growing carnivore movement.
There's a swath of people right now that are eating nothing but red meat.
Sean, what would you call this diet that you're on?
Mostly red meat.
6'5", 52 years old.
Actually, one more. Yeah, that one's fine.
But we need to aggressively push back in a very organized and well thought out manner.
Fuck vegans!
Fuck veganism.
I think it's time now to get aggressive.
We see it every time, vegan mental illness.
It's time to, really push the issue, really push back on these people hard.
A selfie with plant-based news.
It's time to tell these people they are not right. We're not going to fall for their tyranny, their fascism. So we need to stop accepting their framework. We need to have our own narrative, and we need to push back.
But as these radical counterculture carnists took to the streets promoting raw meat as food, they forced people to confront a simple truth: that meat eating in whatever form has profound consequences. And once we know about these consequences, it makes us question what we'd rather not know.
Bacon is back on the menu.
As far as we know, there have been 5 major extinction events on our planet. Events caused by changes so severe that many species simply can't adapt and, as such, die out. Right now, we are in the midst of the Earth's 6th mass extinction.
While the impending climate crisis quickly became a topic of public discussion in the mainstream, a few figureheads emerged. One of these was 16-year-old Greta Thunberg.
We are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, and the extinction rate is up to 10,000 times faster than what is considered normal, with up to 200 species becoming extinct every single day.
For way too long, the politicians and the people in power have gotten away with not doing anything to fight the climate crisis.
Even most climate scientists or green politicians keep on flying around the world, eating meat and dairy.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you!
Thunberg, who ditched meat, dairy and flying to reduce her carbon footprint, captured public imagination, becoming not only an environmental voice, but also a pop culture icon, appearing on magazine covers and winning awards for her ferocious criticism of politicians.
So what do you think, what has Greta got that politicians don't have?
Well, first of all, she's speaking not only to the young people, but she's speaking to everybody, including she's speaking to the politicians, because she says the way it is, which is, hey, you're not keeping your promises, you keep talking and you go from one meeting to the next meeting and you're signing all kinds of certificates and laws and this and that, and you're making a big to-do about something, but there's no action.
And since our time is running out, we have decided to take action. We have started to clean up your mess, and we will not stop until we are done.
So that's what she's saying, and I think that people woke up and they said, I mean, they listened to her, they said, yeah, there's no action. It's getting worse. You know, the heat is increasing, you know, sea levels are rising, people are dying because of pollution, water pollution, air pollution, and all this stuff, and people are angry about it. So I think they're listening, and I think that she has really caught on a certain vacuum that was there, you know, that kind of rattled the cage and woke everybody up.
Schwarzenegger himself was becoming increasingly visible in the debate around eating meat and its impact on the environment and human health. And following in the footsteps of his Less Meat, Less Heat campaign with James Cameron, Schwarzenegger became involved in 2019's highly anticipated plant-based documentary The Game Changers as an executive producer.
I ate a lot of meat. They showed us commercials.
Steak. That's what a man eats.
Selling that idea that real men eat meat. But you got to understand, that's marketing.
When I made the switch to a plant-based diet, I qualified for my 3rd Olympic team. I broke 2 American records. I was like, man, I should have done this a long while ago.
When I went plant-based, I wasn't sure if I was going to survive. And I actually became like a machine.
I think this is going to wake a lot of people up.
Today's blood and yesterday's blood.
Damn. We all want to feel great, have more energy.
Most guys my age can keep up with the grandchildren. My grandchildren can't keep up with me.
Someone asked me, how could you get as strong as an ox without eating any meat? And my answer was, have you ever seen an ox eating meat?
The impact of this film was not to be underestimated.
You know what? I will watch this documentary.
The meat-eating ways of a handful of Broncos burned by Netflix documentary The Game Changers, challenging the idea muscles are built by eating meat.
Do a bit of plant-based food instead of the meat all the time.
After the film was released, an important shift took hold.
I eventually started cutting out dairy, started feeling a lot better, then started cutting out meat because I never really liked it, and then the more I kind of cut things out, the better I started feeling.
The floodgates opened, with more and more people speaking out about plant-based diets, including professional bodybuilder Kai Green and 4-time Tour de France champion Chris Froome. The female 2019 plank world record holder announced she was powered by plants. And celebrities including Kim Kardashian and comedian Russell Brand announced they had ditched animal products.
I'm vegan.
Among others who also spoke out, including rock star Bryan Adams, social media star Casey Neistat, comedian Ramesh Ranganathan, F1 champion Lewis Hamilton, megastar musician Billie Eilish, actors Jerome Flynn and Joaquin Phoenix, as well as Coldplay star Chris Martin.
The fact that we are encouraged to think about where our meat comes from and how much we consume can only be a good thing for us, for animals, and for the planet.
I started because I related to animals when I was a kid, and then later I learned about the environmental impact of animal farming. And I learned that the biggest thing I could do to have an impact on the planet's health was to become vegan.
Even World Wrestling Entertainment used the rise of veganism to appear more on trend by moulding stars into militant vegan characters.
These people harm the earth every single day with their needless consumption. Every single day they drink their plastic water bottles. Every single day they eat their factory farmed meat, which emits methane into the atmosphere, which causes permanent change to the climate.
But there were some even stranger events in 2019, because as positive support grew, so did opposition. For example, the animal agriculture industry said their products were good for the environment.
Sheep are almost the ultimate in renewable technology.
Despite the science supporting the opposing viewpoint.
There were 2 studies released last year. The first was the most comprehensive study that ever looked at the relationship between farming and the environment. It looked at 119 countries and 40,000 farms, and it revealed that the vegan diet or a vegan lifestyle is the single biggest way that we can live that reduces our impact. The second study was the most comprehensive study ever conducted between food and the environment. And it said that in this country, in the UK, not America, but in the UK, we have to reduce our pork, our beef, and our lamb consumption by 90% to avoid meeting that 2 degrees Celsius threshold rise. That would be catastrophic.
Free-range meat has a far greater environmental impact even than the very high impact of indoor meat production.
Anyone who feels any shred of responsibility towards the younger generations really has to look at the impact that their habits are having. The single biggest step we can take as individuals to improve the climate is to ditch meat and dairy.
In the face of increasing environmental awareness, meat and dairy brands tried to thwart the growth of plant-based producers, calling for legislation banning them from using traditional animal food names. They claimed consumers were confused by products like almond milk or vegan burgers, despite data showing this was not the case.
This is an imaginary crisis. No one is mistaking a veggie burger for meat. What's really going on is that producers are afraid of the new competition.
The animal agriculture industry in Australia wanted to ditch the word slaughter when referring to the livestock industry, instead choosing to use the word process because of the emotional connotations that they claimed were associated with words such as slaughter. As one meat boss put it, the word slaughter is not appropriate for our industry as we are processing animals through the various stages that end up for food. But the meat industry failed to realise something that was becoming very clear. As veganism cemented itself in popular culture and the economy, there was nothing that could be done to halt the changing tide, and anything meat industry representatives tried to do only made them look desperate.
What our legislation does is clearly says that what is on the label is what the product is. So if you want to have a burger, and as long as you know that it is plant-based, that's fine, but you can't call it a meat burger when it's not meat. And all we're saying is that the label must conform to the identity of the food product.
And is the purpose here to protect consumers, or is it to prevent competition? Because I must tell you, having eaten a vegan meal this week, which was delicious, I can understand why the status quo, the meat industry, would be very, very nervous about what's coming.
Veganism was breaking growth and sales records all over the world. The 2019 Veganuary campaign saw hundreds of thousands of people sign up, and the vegan food and beverage market grew in response to the burgeoning demand.
We heard about Veganuary. This is an all-year-round thing now.
Oh, absolutely. It's gone past the stage of being a fad. It really is massive. It's been following a decent level of growth over the last 30 years. I mean, in the last 2 years alone, there's been a 700% increase in people that have been following a plant-based diet.
I went vegan, it was about 6 or 7 years ago, and it wasn't popular. Now it's become, you know, like a trendy thing to do. And a lot of cafes and restaurants are catering for dairy-free, gluten-free, vegan options. And so it's actually quite easy now.
So it is a very popular search on Google these days. What is a vegan?
I do see veganism being normalized, and it is flipping. But once it flips, veganism will be normalized, and then people will just eat veganism. They'll eat vegan, and they won't think of it as vegan. It's just food.
In the last 4 years, there's been exponential growth. People are really becoming more conscious about this, and I see that it's going to be growing even more than it has in the last few years.
The Veganuary, the campaign to get people to go vegan for 1 month, reckon that by the end of this month, 500,000 people around the world will have tried moving to a plant-based diet.
Major burger chain Grilled is going meat-free Monday. Today, all 137 restaurants nationwide will substitute plant-based protein for meat.
Veganism has been on the rise. Last year, there were over 540,000 vegans in the UK in comparison to just 150 back in 2006.
As a rising number of Australians are becoming vegan.
End of last year, with demand for meat-free food up 98% in 2018. 25% of millennials are now either vegan, vegetarian or flexitarian.
This is the moment. This is the time for change. Let's transform. Let's dare to hope.
In the face of growing support, pro-meat advocates tried to impede momentum once again. This time, at the end of the summer, at the 2020 US Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee.
Meat and poultry products are important sources of micronutrients.
Over 20 gold standard studies have shown that beef contributes favorably to heart health and other positive health outcomes.
The USDA Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, which brings together industry figures and experts every 5 years, convened in 2019 to discuss the US government's food recommendations for 2020.
Plant-powered diets rich in fiber are becoming very popular, including for athletes performing at the highest levels.
We asked the committee to discourage the consumption of processed meats.
Consumption of processed meat causes cancer.
For athletes and non-athletes alike.
Too much animal food, too much dairy, too much processed food.
Prostate cancer, breast cancer.
We put these people on a low-fat, high-fiber, plant-based diet.
A whole food plant-based diet. A whole food plant-based diet.
And they get better.
Even though the vast majority of speakers promoted a plant-based diet, a bitter war of words ensued, with many arguing their patients are confused by the mixed messages they receive.
my patients are confused. They're confused by the guidelines, and they're confused by the discussions here, and they're confused by bad science.
It is inappropriate and a disservice to the public to consider beans or tofu as equivalent to meat and poultry products, because they're not.
Well, there's a lot of confusion about diet. Some of it's been sowed here. People advocating high-fat diets.
When you put carbs in your body, you become sick.
Animal protein and animal fat causing intramyocellular fat, causing ceramide toxicity, causes insulin resistance.
You are not making important distinctions between high and low quality evidence.
This committee now has control over our #1 killer.
The USDA dietary guidelines debate showed exactly why the general public was so confused. Because although awareness of the benefits of plant-based nutrition was increasing, there was always an opposing viewpoint that left people bewildered, such as misleading stories from industry-funded studies or overblown headlines.
They say that our views of red meat in the United States are in fact built on shoddy evidence, and that if red meat has any negative health effect, it's a small one.
But behind the scenes, an important breakthrough emerged out of Europe, providing aspiration for how the medical system could operate. It started with a company called NFI, which began exploring potential opportunities within the healthcare system. The founders noticed that despite the overwhelming evidence supporting plant-based nutrition, it had not yet integrated plant-based medicine in any serious way. What was shortly to follow had important implications that could change the medical industry forever. The company created a protocol based around whole plant foods, but went a step further by using an algorithm to completely personalize it. The results were so good that the personalized diet was prescribed by a national institute in Europe, achieving an unprecedented type 2 diabetes remission rate of over 96%. It was an extraordinary experiment that showed by using a novel and business-focused approach, it was possible to integrate plant-based nutrition into the medical system in a very significant way. The message spread beyond the medical community as consumers swapped out regular options for plant-based alternatives, with health cited as a factor. Plant-based food sales in the US grew at a rate that was 5 times that of the growth of the total US retail food market. And when it came to dairy-free milk, a 6% growth in sales was observed, while cow's milk sales fell 3%. But then everything changed after the release of the biggest dairy farm expose in history, where consumers were given another powerful reason to ditch milk. Fair Oaks Farm used to be described as the Disneyland of agricultural tourism. It welcomed 500,000 tourists every year to see its museum, restaurant, and hotel, as well as dairy farm. But in 2019, this quaint facade was exposed for what it was. Totally phony.
Hello, my name is Mike McCloskey, owner and founder of Fair Oaks Farms. Yesterday, Animal Recovery Mission released a video that contains footage of Fair Oaks Farms. Watching this video broke my heart and created a sadness that I'll have to endure the rest of my life. I am sorry and I apologize for the footage in this video.
When the media found out about the systematic and violent abuse, the story blew up. Because of the extent of the abuse, the sheer scale of the farm, the corporation it supplied, and its previous high welfare claims, the expose made for an explosive story, with mainstream media coverage of the systematic violence rattling on for days, in a way that animal rights exposés rarely do. And it set the scene for further exposés to penetrate the mainstream.
Animal rights activists promised mass disruption, and they certainly delivered across the country yesterday. They invaded abattoirs, rescued sheep and brought traffic in Melbourne CBD to a standstill. The protest comes as a rising number of Australians are becoming vegans.
Farmers are fuming, calling for animal rights group Aussie Farms to be stripped of its charity status after it launched an online map revealing addresses and contact details of hundreds of farms across the country.
The Prime Minister has called these protests
protests un-Australian, saying his government will support any affected farmers wanting to pursue legal action.
The Commonwealth is totally open to supporting them in a test case to show these green-collared criminals that you don't get to go and pull the rug from under our Aussie farmers.
The real criminality is the systemic torture and slaughter of billions of animals in the cruelest, filthiest, most sadistic conditions. It breaks multiple laws, but the police protect the corporate criminals and instead arrest those saving lives, Greenwald tweeted.
The word terrorism implies someone's being terrorised, and those activists are trying to stop animals from being literally butchered against their will. Okay, so who's the real terrorist here?
This is an unbelievable exercise in mass cruelty, in the torture of intelligent, sentient beings.
They keep them tightly confined so they can't move around. They fatten them up and they kill them real young.
To suggest that farmers have been subject to invasion of their personal homes is blatantly untrue and seeks to deliberately mislead the public.
No one wants to go into these farms. I do not want to go into these farms or slaughterhouses. They are horrific places. I don't want to see that. I have been personally traumatised by it.
If a practice is painful and cruel for one animal, so much so that it carries significant criminal penalties, how can it possibly be legal for another animal who will also be subjected to pain and suffering? For example, the excruciating gas chambers used in all major pig slaughterhouses, world-leading, very humane. The pigs just gently fall asleep, we've been told. That was before extensive footage was obtained by activists. Footage of pigs entering gas chambers, thrashing around in ever-increasing panic and agony as their lungs are seared from the inside out. Desperate to escape, many of whom inadvertently pulled their own legs off, fighting for their lives.
In August, data revealed that the Amazon had seen a record number of fires in 2019. The National Institute for Space Research detected more than 70,000 fires between January and August, an 84% increase compared to the same period in 2018. The increase coincided with the election of Brazil's far-right president Jair Bolsonaro in January, who pledged to develop the region for farming and mining when he took office, despite the warnings of conservationists around deforestation.
In fact, there's an 80% increase in fires just over the last year alone, and this comes, of course, after the hottest July our planet has ever seen. I want you to take a look at these pictures showing the smoke from space. These are images from high above, covering huge parts of South America.
Do you know why the Amazon is burning? It's because to make cattle farms, to raise cows and kill them for people to eat, they used to chop down trees to make lots of room in any forest. And because that got outlawed, people start fires in forests. That's not happening on its own. It's literally people making fires to burn down the trees. They're getting what they want. It's not like it's an accident. They did it on purpose.
The fires in the Amazon, that's being caused largely by cattle ranchers and farmers clearing land for cattle or to grow food to feed farm animals. People don't realize that more than 70% of all soy is fed to farm animals.
Brazil declared a state of emergency as the whole world watched helplessly.
We are all in a burning building now,
right? That's the situation that we're in. As Greta Thunberg says, I want you to act like our house is on fire, because it is. So that's why we're back on the streets, because after our rebellion in April, Parliament declared a climate and environment emergency. But what's actually been done? Where's the actual action?
The mobilisation of the environmental movement, including the call to move to a plant-based food system, as part of Extinction Rebellion's Animal Rebellion faction, represented a new phase of awareness.
That if we stop eating meat and dairy, we have an enormous potential then for sucking carbon out of the atmosphere. Because so much of the land which is currently occupied by livestock would revegetate if those livestock were removed.
But with this new phase came a number of sobering questions. Has the unprecedented rise of veganism only been brought about as a tragic response to the devastating environmental destruction? And as the planet continued to spin out of control at an ever-increasing rate, can we change fast enough?
We've talked about corporate corruption, campaign finance, agriculture, environmental justice. All of these things are interrelated. You can't separate them out. When we talk about healthcare, let's not just talk about doctors and nurses. Let's talk about healthy food systems.
Many people should be adopting a plant-based diet. I don't see our government talking about that.
I felt gut punched because I felt like we had been advertised to our whole lives that we absolutely have to have meat to be healthy and had to have milk for strong bones. I mean, growing up, my mom was, you girl,
calcium,
exactly.
yes, absolutely.
The access to knowledge is so vast now. And I want to be a part of spreading that.
It's just as easy to be vegan here in Asia as it is the US, Canada, Europe, and Australia.
The truth is the truth. It cuts through everything.
As more and more people spoke out, the tide seemed to be turning, with old institutions implementing new ways, including universities ditching meat, and entertainment companies going vegan.
Having gone from niche to mainstream over a decade, veganism is now one of Britain's fastest growing lifestyle movements.
We have to do this. We have to go plant-based.
It's the most exciting trend in medicine today, and it's a wave that hasn't even begun to crest.
Major new films promoting plant-based diets announced they would be launching in 2020, while others were released to huge acclaim.
The Game Changers doco on Netflix, which has captivated the world.
And it includes Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lewis Hamilton, and Novak Djokovic.
Top designers and high street stores took steps towards becoming more sustainable, with even the Queen ditching fur. Vegan TV shows hit the small screen, and animal-free options continued to be released across a range of retailers. The predictions made by media pundits that 2019 would be the year of the vegan were coming true, as a new narrative was emerging. One that promoted compassion, health, sustainability, and equality for all.
Someone doing something kind for an animal, I'm in floods, because it's so sweet. It's affirmation. It's the best that people can be.
Suddenly, a vision was being provided where a movement would finally flourish.
Why post on Instagram when A Billion Veg can raise $1 for animal welfare every time you make a review? This film is sponsored by A Billion Veg, the revolutionary social media platform with a social purpose. Every review converts into $1 that you can use to donate to animal sanctuaries and nonprofit groups. This is the fastest growing platform for the plant-based community globally. You can find reviews and recommendations for vegan-friendly dishes and products. There's more than 450 plant-based milk products reviewed on the A Billion Veg app.
We wanted to show businesses around the world that 1 out of every 25 dishes on their menu being plant-based isn't good enough. By creating a dish review platform, we create a lot of really interesting data points, to chefs, to owners of businesses, showing them what people are saying about their vegan options to compete for your vegan dollar.
Help others by sharing information that's needed to make better choices. Join the A Billion Veg movement and let's work together to make the world more plant-based.
I mean, we really are heading into a plant-based revolution.
There's no stereotype anymore.
We're going to be looking at a very, very different world in about 5 years.
The world is changing.
Plant-based news.
Plant-based news.
You know, the evidence is clear. The future is definitely plant-based.
Brought up in plant-based news.
Plant-based news.
It's an interesting publication.
This is the news, okay? This is the real news.
Demand for meat-free food increased by nearly 1,000% last year.
Now, more and more people are cutting out meat and dairy products and adopting a plant-based diet.
This next year is our year. Like, it's the year we go mainstream.
What was once a fringe movement is now mainstream.
It's not just a trend, it's not just a phase.
People have been hit with multiple sources of information, and it still hasn't hit everybody, but more and more people are seeing some pretty dramatic and compelling research.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about a vegan diet?
The biggest misconception is everyone says, where do you get your protein?
And I've had a long-term health condition, and I've seen a dramatic shift in my health in the last 12 days.
It's recognized again by the American insurance industry that there's only 2 dietary plans that can reverse heart disease. There's no meat in those programs. They're plant-based programs.